What's up, guys? Welcome back to Startup Growth Stories from Product10x, a startup accelerator for early-stage enterprise SaaS startups with a focus on product-led growth. If you are an entrepreneur with a great idea or a founder with a super early-stage company, you are in the right place. Stick around to get insights from other startup founders and learn from peers.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Today we will get into a little bit in depth on our founders' view from Product10x point of view to really get into what we look from each and every industry and some of the questions that many people have been asking. So let's get started with this at this point of time. So Anand, any questions that you may have, fire it away.
The first question for today is, what is Product10x?
Yeah, absolutely. So Product10x, simply put, we are a startup co-creator and operators in residence. And this is really a culmination of a lot of our previous, of course, past experiences with the startups and enterprises where we've seen that, okay, if I get a little more help right from the day one, the startup trajectory can be totally different in a positive side of it. And that's really where the whole of the Product10x came together with that co-creation model for startups and entrepreneurs.
That's just brilliant. So now that you've explained what Product10x is, why do we need another accelerator, Suresh?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of accelerators, we do want to recognize they do really well from Y Combinations of the world or 500 startups of the world, where they bring in cohorts, then they really talk about, the high level view of what the startups are, the pricing models, the business models, the SaaS and everything, which is really great. But then I think what we have seen is once the startups come out of these accelerator programs, that's really when the day-to-day challenges begin, right? Where, hey, I have a new customer, they are really looking for a one-year contract versus a monthly SaaS subscription model, or I am not really sure how to price this particular product. So there are many decisions that the founders have to take on a daily basis, and clearly, many of these startup accelerators don't provide that kind of daily support. And that's exactly where we really thought through the fundamentals of the first principles as Product10x to really talk about what is the problem, how do you decompose this problem, and then how do you provide the solution, whether irrespective of whether it is about the startup, pricing model or your business models or whatever it is. But I think we seriously think about these first principles right from the day one of a startup.
That definitely gives a fantastic explanation to why another accelerator, like how it is differentiated. Now, when we work with startups, how do we evaluate these startups from your point of view?
Yeah, so in the last couple of years, we went through about 180 startups plus, where we've talked to them at least 3 hours in depth about their ideas, the product, the technology, the business models, and everything. And as a result of it, I think there are 3 fundamental core ideas that we are always looking for, right? The first one is really about the founders themselves. Because in the startup world, we keep talking about the market fit, the product market fit, or the sales market fit and whatnot. But we want to take a step back and say, is there a founder market fit, right? That's really super important, because at the end of the day, as a founder, do you have that right amount of domain and energy to really get into a particular vertical or a platform product and whatnot? And that's really something that we deeply look into in a founder. That's one. The second one is about the opportunity space, because there are a lot of startups, clearly that come up in whatever vertical or horizontal. When we say horizontal, it's really like a platform product, think of it that way, right? But then we need to be really looking at a growing market. Again, for many of the growth stage, venture capital or private equity firms, even if a particular industry is not growing, they have the money and the ability to support them. But when we really look at the seed stage and seed startups, we really want to make sure that there is a pretty good growth in that particular industry. And then all the trends are really looking towards the directional improvement in the overall product and the growth in the market. The last one really is why now? I think we always have to ask the question of whether from founder's point of view or for us as co-creators, and in some cases, we also, of course, lead with some initial seed funding, but then that's super important for us to understand why now? Why is this the right time for us to start your business? And that really comes in a mix of various forms, right? Because there are some professionals who have had decades of experience, and then they are like, you know what, we have seen this problem constantly in this industry and we want to solve it. So that's a great way for them to really have a startup, and then they understand the problem space and then go from there. But at the same time, there are other trends, for example, the whole of the Web 3.0, where people keep talking about the metaverse, or the whole of the decentralized finance, DeFi, what we call as, and the whole of the blockchain oriented marketplaces. So that's really where we want to make sure that there are these trends falling in alignment for this particular startup to be able to grow and be successful. And so anyway, in summary, I think, it's really about the founders and the founder fit. The second one is the opportunity. And then the third one is why now?
That's just a brilliant way to kind of distill it, and for the folks listening in on this. So when you talk about those areas, specifically from your background, your industry experience, what are some of the trends that you see in, let's say, future of work, which has been a huge area or industry that has come out on top today, and why is it important for the founders to embrace it now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks, Anand. So the future of work, I think, probably came in the last 5 years or so, but then the whole of the usage of the vertical industry has accelerated with the whole COVID era in a way. And again, I just want to define what we mean at Product10x by the future of work, because there are multiple versions of it when we see outside, especially in the industry. You will see that when people talk about the future of work, it's really about how do we bring in the remote hybrid work cultures together and then improve the productivity within an organization. But we think of it slightly different. While, of course, bringing in the remote hybrid kind of work cultures is super important, without a question. But then it has to go a little beyond. We want to improve the productivity, and we want to improve the collaboration within, not just within the organization, but across the organizations, and then make it pretty industry vertical specific. That's really the value of the future of work when we talk about, because we really want to take it a human-centric approach rather than an organization-centric approach. And what it means for us is to really say, previously, we have all these platforms that got built, and the platform strategy still works. For example, the likes of Microsoft and Salesforce, for them, platform play is the right thing. Without a question, right? For them, they want to maximize the customer penetration and then upsell, cross-sell. So the platform still makes sense. But if you are a startup really starting with a particular idea in improving the productivity or a process improvement, or how the companies do the collaboration across or within the organization, it's very important for you to look at one particular use case within an industry. And that's been proven again and again that that's what in the last 4 or 5 years we've been seeing in the startups, where it is very easy to say that, I want to become a platform company within that space, but really, look back, take a step back, and then say, what is the one specific problem that I'm solving? And then really, put your head towards solving one single use case. And within our portfolio, we have seen, several cases, right? For example, in the latest exit that we have seen in the Indus.ai, that's really a video analytics platform, really looking at one particular or couple of use cases of the worker safety in the construction space. And within 5-6 years, they've seen a tremendous growth and exit to Procore, for example. So this is really where you see this trend of really verticalizing the industry and your startup, and the growth and multiples are super high in that space.
That's Joe asked me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, turn down the tables, and then probably Jogi have some questions for Anand. Jogi, you're on. Yeah.
Suresh, it's extremely informative what information that you shared for a lot of startups and founders. Again, over this journey, we have seen all of that have some great implications. Thank you so much. Anand, again, thank you for all the questions. Those were quite informative. I just wanted to understand, given you have a deep focus on technology and also in terms of the newer tech that we continue to see, why do you think that every company should be an AI company first, and why not?
That comes up all the time, right? So let me take a step back. So there has been a lot talked about when it comes to artificial intelligence, right? Everybody, is embracing that whole, means of artificial intelligence, this artificial intelligence that. The way that I put it is, it's automation at scale, right? So for any company to be, competitive and being able to grow and scale, they've got to embrace automation, right? Artificial intelligence is an important aspect of how you can actually take all the data that you're collecting. And every company today is a software company, regardless of which industry you're in, right? And that data translates into insights and value over time for any given company. So the way that I look at it is, artificial intelligence is automation at scale. And the way that companies can become extremely competitive, I would say, against their competitors, and also, make value, bring value to their customers and their industry and stakeholders, is embracing it at scale, right? And if you look at the companies that have been successful in a lot of ways, they have in fact put the time and effort into putting that, data into real use, right? And that is the key aspect of what artificial intelligence has really been the game changer in this whole thing. Can every company do that? Probably not. This is where startups are actually innovating at a much faster cycle, right? They are able to do that at a faster tick. And if you really look at it, the amount of startups that are bringing that artificial intelligence to use in for any enterprise, small business, medium-sized business, is growing significantly over the past few years. And the investments are following that as well, because there is a huge value and business value that is being delivered from these startups that bring artificial intelligence to life and doing that automation at scale. So that is one reason why, if you look at the trend in the industry for the past 5 to 6 years, AI has been kind of a foundational element of any company. And in the future, when we talk about AI first, companies were software integrated. Now they want to be AI first, in the sense that automation at scale is important for them to be remaining competitive and growing at the rate that they want to grow.
Thank you, Anand. You know what? That was an extremely succinct way of how you are able to bring out the value as to why companies need to continue to look at being AI first. Thank you for that. So what do you see are some of the common pitfalls from the startups that over the past 2 years that Product10x has continued to advise, and what do you see from just as a learning to our audience?
That is a very, very interesting question, and also thank you for asking that. The way that I look at it is that, you know, any given company, any given startup is unique, right? In their own problems or in their own success stories that they have. Not everybody has the same, flavor of, pitfalls, as you can call it. But let me try to generalize that. What we have come up with is from what the approach to solving those problems, right? Or the common pitfalls. Not highlighting the pitfalls themselves, but kind of what approach we have taken in that process. So in that process, we have in fact come up with a journey map as to how these startups need to think about scale and maturity and being relevant in the market, right? And growing in a constant, healthy, resource constrained situations that they are in. Those are kind of things that we have thought through, right? So let's start with one: launch. We talk about this a lot to the founders that we advise, which is a product is not everything, right? This is really have to look at what product we are working and how we establish the product market fit, as Suresh pointed out earlier. Pick one problem that you're trying to solve. Why this needs to be solved, and why you, and why now, right? And that is the fundamental way of how we have started advising. And this is a common pitfall that every founder wants to solve every problem that is in every industry, right? And that is a key thing that we have tried to kind of narrow down and bring focus and to the conversation. The second aspect of it is acceleration. So once you have the product, what do you do with it? How do you actually get that feedback into your product roadmap? How do you actually get the product market fit now that you're trying to establish with the right sales readiness, the right marketing readiness? How do you actually go after these pilot customers that you want to validate your idea, right? And that's kind of the second phase of it. Now, the common pitfall that comes with this: hey, these customers are loving it, so I'm good with it. I'm just going to go after this market. That's not how it works. So you really have to establish a pattern of what the customers are asking for, and also really listen to the market itself, right? Customers might not know everything that they want, but the idea here is that are your solutions driving the value that they are expecting from something that they want to invest in, right? That's the number two pitfall. And the other one is also from a scale perspective. They really have a lot of issues when it comes to kind of right sizing their teams, right? So founders always want to, hey, I want the CTO, I want the CPO, I want this, and I want this level. We really want to right size that conversation, right? What is the right fit for you at this point in time, and how do you map out that journey and as you grow, right? As an early stage startup, you really have to look at how do you build that culture, how do you build that common, kind of that foundation for you to build those, future ready state that you want to be in. That's number three. And number four, every startup wants to raise funds, right? And that's where we bring in a really multifaceted approach to measuring KPIs that are important for any given startup and every given stage, and also how we actually work with them on developing that legal framework, the IP framework, the cap table, advice that we provide, and also advisory boards that are important as they build their executive team, right? So that's kind of that fundraise ready pitfall that they always go, having one customer with some revenue is not going to get you so far. You really have to get to traction. That's basically, the framework that we have built as part of the co-creation journey map.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Anand. One last question. You have spent a lot of time in the health tech space, and why do you think that this is the right time to innovate within this space? And again, wanted your reflection on what is happening in the industry as well, as we continue to see a lot of capital that's driven.
That question was coming, Jogi. Thanks for asking that. But here is how I would put it. The entire 2020, right? Healthcare funding was a whopping $14.6 billion. At the end of Q3 of 2021, according to Rock Health, there is a $20 billion investment already funneled into digital health. So this is cutting across all the digital health areas, right? It can be research and development, could be on-demand healthcare, treatment of disease, fitness and like prevention-related startups, or in the segment, and then non-clinical workflows and also consumer health-related information that is becoming like population health, if you call it, right, is becoming big. But if you really focus on just the whole idea of disease prevention and disease diagnosis and cure, it's a huge opportunity for any and aspiring founder or startup to actually get in on this, because there are real problems to be solved, and there's a huge market opportunity for healthcare to be modern. It really is a great way to actually bring what their passion into the equation. And if you really look at it, these are problems that every community and geographical area faces, like mental health, cardiovascular disease, diabetes prevention, primary care, modernization, right? Oncology, substance use disorder. All of these things are areas that our society faces today, right? And we are all in it and part of it in that equation. So if I look at it, health tech itself is growing significantly. It is actually getting a number of investment. And I talked about AI. AI is driving a lot of these value propositions into the health tech as well, right? Because ideally in about 5 years from now, we will be talking about it, how AI advancements have actually impacted healthcare in a way, right? So by 2023, they're expecting that AI will be in every single aspect of healthcare as we move forward, in terms of diagnosis, treatment, prevention, and cure, right? That's how I'd like to say, why health tech is more important in today's and in the future.
Thank you so much, Anand. Again, this is extremely important in terms of what you have emphasized, because we are seeing a lot of challenges with the pandemic and beyond right now. And the emphasis around health tech and what AI has implications, and the overall tech in itself driving the innovation today is super fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It really feels like we should actually have every week of these insights discussion just from the three of us, right? But so Anand, I think I just want to sort of double click on one thing that you said, right? I think the whole of the AI innovation in the healthcare, we've seen there are these huge enterprises that are behind the AI, and of course, with the right amount of data that they have, they're able to influence at one level. The second level is probably really some of these startups, trying to really innovate. So can you share some perspective on why startups are really, taking that leap of faith, especially where when enterprises say, "Oh, that can't be done," and then I think these really tiny, small, very innovative startups that are coming up, and then they are challenging the enterprises and saying, "We will make sure we will, make it happen." Can you just talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So taking a step back, right? Healthcare, historically has been, pretty hard, right? Meaning the volume and the amount of regulations that are involved. Any large corporation, they are innovating at the pace that they would wish to, right? Probably not. But the idea here is that startups have a different speed, right? They have a different mentality. They don't take the past into a lot of consideration. They want to say, hey, how do I solve this? We talked about it. What is that one problem that I want to solve, right? What is that one a specific area I would like to solve, and then let me go solve that specific area or kind of that differentiation is what is working for these smart startups, right? Now, of course, there are partnerships that are huge, are huge in this process, because without data, AI or any of the new concepts is not going to be, very, very much useful. So those partnerships that these startups are actually establishing, right, are basically kind of that game changer in this. Because when you're small and you go to a specific, healthcare clinic or, a institution, they say, hey, I have this problem, can you solve it for us? That type of is a much better conversation than, hey, I have this big solution, how can I implement this for you? Right. So that's basically the key difference in how startups are able to kind of bring that value to the healthcare institutions. And also the fact that that the speed at which they can operate is quite different when it comes to that. So I would say that speed, agility, as we call it, and also kind of really understanding of the problem statement and addressing that, at the core, is something that is startups have been, pretty successful in the recent times.
Absolutely. I think, that really goes back to our, I'm sure, observation as a team, which is the platform strategy is super important. I think, that is still very relevant for the enterprises for sure. But at the same time, now with the startups coming up, hey, you know what, are you able to, in a much faster way, solve a specific problem? And then is it helping me? And that's really where we are seeing whether all the acquisitions within the multiple vertical industries that we have seen in the past is really, it's not really about, they have a particular platform, but are you able to solve this one particular challenge that somebody is going through, right? So thank you very much, Anand. Jogi, I think, those were like, pretty strong questions for sure. Thanks for thinking through. And now that, Jogi, so just coming back to you on the whole thing, you've been a, ed tech as well as the recruiting veteran, I would say, right? In the past decades, you've really seen a lot of technologies, platforms that got built. And with your recent, the experiences of the whole edtech strategy, we just want to understand, I think, where do you see the intersection of all these things coming up in these industries, and what are those insights, please?
Thank you. That's a great question, Suresh. Again, what we continue to see is, because of the influx of technology, AI, and other recent deep tech related technologies that we continue to see, like in every industry, the ed tech and the recruiting industry are also kind of quite impacted by that. And we have seen in the past few years how the mega trends that we continue to see around these industries have been kind of just continue to change and make over because of what is happening. And so certainly scale is kind of critical of within these industries today. We have seen the likes of 2U and other firms which continue to scale at a different level altogether. For them to deploy the new technologies, whether in delivery, whether in acquisition, whether in terms of how they continue to innovate, has been very important. Certainly this has also relation to what is happening at the college and universities as well. We continue to see that higher ed is kind of certainly going through massive change at this time, and how the tech industry kind of just certainly taken over from we either exploited the gaps or are able to kind of create new categories within this space is something that we notice a lot. And so I continue to see that that we will see more changes that would happen over here, because with certainly as we kind of learned over the COVID journey as well, that the industries are getting disrupted right now, and that's kind of impacting both the tech and again in the same vein on the recruiting industry as well. That's another space that we saw, whether it is candidate lifecycle management, whether it is the application of AI in the recruiting models, are changing quite a bit right now.
Absolutely. Oh, wow. That's very impactful, right? Especially, I think, when we look at the whole of MOOCs, what we called as in the edtech, the whole of, the Udemy and Coursera. At some point of time, people thought, oh my goodness, Udemy and Coursera are taking over the world, and then, there is no other innovation that is possible. But I think, we still keep seeing there is so much of so many startups that are coming up that are really looking at the improving quality of education in a way, and whether it is by really building in the marketplaces for the likes of the professors and students, or how do I really make sure that this is the right course to be taught for my students, for example. So I think, the part that you talked about, the scale, I think is, super important, because it's very easy to say that, hey, you know what, I have this product, and then there are these two universities or colleges that have adopted, but then how do we go really beyond that? I think,
Very
super important. Um, so I think you've been a huge proponent of growth via partnerships approach. So that's something that, I would like to sort of double click and, dig into and say, when do you think, that really works? Versus, there are several founders, for example, they would think of having the sales team, in-house, biz dev team first, and then, go to the partnerships levels. But so that's really where, if you can provide some insights on when is the right time to really, pursue the partnerships versus the organic growth in a way.
great question, Suresh. One of the key things that over 25 years of the entrepreneurial journey that we have noticed at our end, and also the number of firms that we continue to advise, is the time is now. For a startup or for a growing company, partnerships has to be part of their overall growth strategy. Because one is you have only limited access to funds or capital, and especially as a startup, and for you to leverage the network that is out there is important, whether it is technology partnerships, whether it is institutional partnerships, whether it is community partnerships. For you to be able to drive that partner ecosystem is critical to look at to begin with. And again, it can come in, not, it never takes away the emphasis from building your own sales teams, but the sales teams also need to be equipped with understanding the strategy behind why partnerships are important, because they are the ones who are out there building, driving and building growth and channels and also sales. It's important that most of their growth can come through partners if they have a robust plan in place. That's one thing. And how do you go about it is, it's again, every company or every founder needs to make it the cornerstone of their scale and acceleration. That it has to be part of their overall strategy as well, just similar to how they have access to capital, or how they bring in leaders and other things as well. It's important that they look at this in an extremely minute way of driving every aspect of sales, or growth can come through partnerships.
Gotcha. Okay. So I think, you touched upon a very important thing, which is many of the startups really go through as, the founders, right? The founder-led sales concept of it, which is, we've seen, both the spectrums, right? There are some founders that are technologists in a way. There are some who really come from the business background. They are able to probably just go in front of the customers and then do the sales and whatnot. But I think, there is definitely a wide spectrum of people that we have seen. In general, I think, from looking at that particular lesson that we have learned over the years, what does it really mean for founders to be able to, start selling? That is one question. The second aspect of that is, from your point of view, we've, definitely analyzed the whole of, 180 companies or so, and then even previously, you've been in this world. So I'm just curious on, what do you really see in a, founder to be able to say, yes, probably we can work with this founder, to come to that conclusion? What does it really mean?
A great question, Suresh. Few things that I found over our journey and also over the years is, it's kind of extremely critical that we find passionate founders. I think whether somebody coming from a business, technology, or other backgrounds, end of the day only have so much impact. But the key thing is somebody truly out there, passionate every day, whether there is success or failure, or through his failures or through his successes, how he is continue to be matured to drive bigger possibilities. That's one thing that we continue to see. So the biggest quality that we see is somebody being passionate about it. And two is that what kind of problems are you trying to solve? Like as you and Anand pointed out, the key is that there is a need that you are solving, or that there is a problem that you are solving. I think that's kind of very important, that you are able to drive your passion towards something that you are able to solve and provide a solution. And it is also important that the founder or the startup kind of entrepreneur understands what are the other things that now impact a certain business or a startup. It's about bringing in leaders. It's about access to capital. It's about sales, marketing. It's about, in terms of driving partnerships, it's about the high touch that would be important. You can't look at it in a silo. I think you got to be that complete package. And the biggest question that we all talk about is, are you coachable end of the day? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to just try something, make mistakes, but that you know how to pivot from there and be able to correct course, or just watch the trends? So much is out there today to absorb. Are you constantly listening and trying to make sense of that and see how they can work for your startup is critical. So very importantly, though, what we continue to see is that you're hungry, you're driven, you're passionate, and you continue to keep your teams motivated. Because in a startup, there are a lot of challenges. I mean, we continue to notice that in our just over this past few years, that we noticed where some founders are highly passionate and extremely hardworking and being ready for the grind. And then there are others who may not always come with those qualities, but then they have other qualities. The key thing is, how do you balance everything, and so that you are, end of the day, bringing value to yourself, to your organization, and to your investors, and to the larger partners or the ecosystem out there.
Yeah, absolutely. That is wonderful, right? Because at the end of the day, where we are, I think what you are driving home the point, really, Jogi, is there are two things that we always see, right? One is, personal growth, and then the startup growth, for sure. And one thing that is very common across is the ability for somebody to learn continuously on a daily basis. And sometimes people think of it as, oh, you know what, I will learn when I make mistakes. But I think that is one nice way, but I think that's not the wisest way to do it, right? Of course, you can also learn from other people's mistakes and then, not to do the same thing on your own. So anyway, I think this has been a great conversation. Looks like there are so many insights that we were able to just, chat at this point of time. Yeah. I'm sure, we will come back again and we will start, I think, probably from the next time onwards, we will take one specific problem and then dig deeper and then provide insights. That will be super helpful.
Excellent. Again, Suresh and Anand, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. Look forward to the next one.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anand. Jogi, bye-bye.
Yep.
Take care.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Startup Growth Stories from Product10x. Don't forget to sign up to our newsletter or review startup material at product10x.com. Until next time.